Today is the second day of that international conference. Dozens of officials and analysts from both countries are there discussing Ukraine's progress in recent years and how the country can move forward, among other topics. On Skype, we have a freelance journalist, Natalie Vikhrov. She joins us on the line from the conference. Natalie, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me.
So what have been some of the key themes that you heard today during the conference when Boris Johnson, the UK Foreign Secretary, and Ukraine's Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman gave their speeches?
So there was definitely a lot of praise for what Ukraine has done so far. There's definitely a sense that Ukraine is moving in the right direction, and definitely praise for particular reforms such as e-declarations and economic reforms, defense reforms, but there was also talk about how it's very important to ensure that these reforms stay in place and to continue reforming sectors such as law enforcement. Also, support from Western and European partners has also been one of the key themes that have been discussed over the past 2 days.
And Volodymyr Groysman, the Ukrainian Prime Minister, he pledged an anti-corruption drive, more to do with rooting out corruption, decades-old corruption that has plagued Ukraine's system for a very long time. What has been the response of Ukraine's British partners? What have you heard when speaking to some of the conference goers today?
We actually given the media wasn't actually given much of a chance to interact with conference goers today. Yesterday, when I spoke to some of the speakers and some of those people who attended the conference, I think there was definitely a sense of a need for Ukraine to continue moving forward and to continue battling corruption. Continue with, I guess, reforming its judicial systems, not only for Ukraine itself, but also for to regain trust from the people, from its international partners. I think, yeah, one of the key messages was that there needs to be some more international support and more funding from international sources, and the only way to get that kind of support is to show that there are internal changes happening, to show that there are reforms in key sectors, and to show businesses that they can safely come to Ukraine.
Right, I see. Now, let me just read to you. Yesterday there was a Ukraine reform conference at Chatham House that I understand you attended as well.
Yes.
So Ivana Klympush-Tsinidze, she's Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister on European and Euro-Atlantic integration. She said, Russia creates an image that Ukraine is a failed state. We have many problems, but Ukraine is changing more than the Kremlin wishes to admit. Now, was there a reaction to this? Because that's quite a powerful statement.
That is, and I definitely think it's a statement that many people would agree with. In terms of the panel itself, it sort of went in order, but that kind of statement is echoed by, I think, many members. Ukraine, the role that Russian propaganda like this plays in this war is definitely something that many people recognize and many people see as a key, something that really needs to be battled. That's something.
Now, some of the other key themes that have been heard over the past couple of days were some of Ukraine's successes and failures. Now, would you say that you have heard a lot of solutions from Ukraine's international partners during some of these conferences? Was there some sort of breakthrough, perhaps?
There was yesterday. There were so many ideas thrown around. There were definitely some very powerful statements made. Yes, Ukraine has made huge leaps in reforms in the defense sector, in the energy sector. That was one of the things that was actually really well praised. The reforms that have been seen in naphtha gas, in the again in the energy sector. Were listed as some of its key achievements, but there was a lot of sentiment that Ukraine does still have a long way to go. I think the Minister of Finance, Alexander Daniluk, said that we are building an economy, but our law enforcement system is as if nothing has happened. And I think one of the more powerful statements was delivered by James Sher. He's an associate fellow in the Russia and Eurasia program at Chatham House. And he basically said that if the authorities in Ukraine prove that they're more interested in power than national security, then they risk causing a disaster for the country. So I think, one of the key messages to take away is that Ukraine is doing really well so far, but it needs to just keep pushing further and further and delivering those reforms.
And those seems to be the remarks that have been echoed today by Ukraine's the UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, when he said a lot has been done, a tremendous amount of work that Ukraine has achieved, but unfortunately, this isn't the end. There are still steps to be taken. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from London.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
So we were joined by Natalie Vikhrov. She is a freelance journalist, and we've been talking about Ukrainian Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman's visit to London, where he spoke at an international conference.